professor of political science at Tennessee Tech University and Secretary General of the EU-Turkey Civic Commission, Michael Gunter. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, hello, merhaba.
Thank you, dear Michael. So, as you follow the latest developments, the Assad regime has been collapsed. How do you evaluate this, first of all? And what is the U.S. Position now? What is the point of view of the United States? What's happening? What is the general frame on the latest developments? Very shortly, please.
This is very amazing, very amazing. We had thought that Assad had won the civil war, and countries are making renewed relations with him. Even Erdogan in Turkey was accepting that Assad had won the civil war, and then out of nowhere, suddenly Assad collapses. I don't think you'll ever see in history somebody supposedly where the government wins the civil war, and then after 5 years of having won the civil war, it loses in less than 2 weeks. That's an amazing situation. Now, you asked me about the U.S. position. As you know, we're going to have a new president in about 6 weeks. Donald Trump is on record as saying that Syria is death and sand, and the United States has nothing to do with it, and he wants to stay out of the situation. Whether he can or not remains to be seen. As you know, there are about 900 American troops in the far northeast of Syria, sort of supporting the Kurdish autonomous government that is in northeastern Syria. But we don't know what the future will bring.
Thank you, Professor. Another important issue is about the Kurds and Rojava. So these jihadist groups are still targeting the Kurds in Syria, especially the SMO, which is supported by Turkey. A big war still continues. Also, Rojava is under threat. Turkey is supporting these terrorist jihadist groups, and it's very clear. What is your comments on that, and what is your call to stop Turkey supporting these groups?
That's a good question, and I'm very disappointed in Turkey. I think Erdogan pushes this issue much too far in order to win popular support in Turkey that he is fighting against terrorists and so forth. Hopefully, because of the downfall of Assad, one of the problems that Turkey has, there are over 3 million Syrian refugees in Turkey, and hopefully some of these refugees now can start coming back to Syria where they belong and take some of this pressure off of Turkey. And hopefully this can make Erdogan stop some of his egregious attacks against Rojava. Now, the leader of the SDF, the leader of the Syrian Kurds and the SDF in Rojava has actually is on record as saying this victory of the HTS of the rebels is historic. He said that historic, and it's an opportunity to build a new Syria. So I think the Syrian Kurds and their allies should use this opportunity, the downfall of Assad, to ask again, present the facts that we present no threat to Turkey, and that now that this civil war is over, let us build on for the future through peace and diplomacy. Now, I realize that sounds pretty weak, and in the end, it is up to the Syrians themselves to reassert Syrian territorial integrity to prevent Turkey from these egregious attacks against the Syrian Kurds.
Thank you, Professor. Also, what is your call to the international community to defend and support Rojava? And why do you think the international community should defend Rojava? As we know, the Rojava is a big win for the Kurds, and Kurds want to protect the Rojava and defend the Rojava, and they will until to the end. But what is your perspective on that?
Well, first of all, I think most people around the world are, are aren't even aware of what is going on with the Syrian Kurds. All the eyes are turned to watch what the rebels under Jolani have done by bursting out of Idlib and forcing Assad to run away and give up. Uh, what's happening to the Kurds is a very side issue, which is important to the Kurds, but I don't think very many people around the world are even aware of it. Now that the war has been won against Assad, hopefully Jolani and his allies want to bring real peace to Syria. And that is impossible unless the Syrian National Army, which is a group of uh, proxies Turkey uses against the Syrian Kurds, are brought under control. So it is up to the new government that is going to form in Syria that if they want to be successful, they are going to have to assert themselves against Turkish intervention, which might be difficult since, as everybody knows, Turkey was in back of the HTS, Jolani's group, and the real losers in all this seem to be Russia, Iran, and Hezbollah. And again, the Kurds are going to have to struggle to even be have their issue heard. But this is a great opportunity now that Assad is gone to bring the Kurdish issue to the attention of the world again and what is going on in Syria. That Turkey has no right to be doing this.
Thank you, Professor. You already mentioned about the new government in Syria, so would like to ask that one as well. What will be the future of the Syria, and what is the role of the Kurds to bring democracy after the regime collapsed?
Well, the last part of your question, the Kurds in Syria have a lot of experience with democracy, and I think could actually play a very helpful role here in the future of Syria. But you have to remember the Syrian Kurds make up what, about 10% of the population of Syria. So the vast majority in people in Syria are not Kurds, and the Kurds can only play a, a, a small role here in developing democracy in Syria, but still an important role. We don't know. All we can do is hope. There's a lot of hope right now. What the future will bring, we don't know. I could comment specifically on a lot of things here. It seems to me that Russia and Iran have suffered tremendous losses here. One of the great achievements of Russia under Putin was his warm water port in Syria and a Russian air base in Syria. And he had achieved this, Putin had achieved this by supporting Assad. And now suddenly it's all gone. And it's partially the fault of Putin because he got himself involved in a war in Ukraine. So he wasn't even able to help his protege Assad survive. And now Putin and Russia has lost their gains in Syria. And that must be really bothering Russia. And Iran, how is Iran going to supply its proxy allies in Syria now? Because the Syrian rebels who have won the war now, they were opponents of Iran. So Russia and Iran have lost greatly, and so has Hezbollah. And what the future brings, all we can do is hope. But I think there's a little good hope here. Jolani has shown himself to be much changed. As you know, 10 years ago, he was an ally of Al Qaeda, and he was a jihadist. And I think there are a lot of signs that he has taken a more moderate position because that is what will enable him to stay in power in Syria. If he is a jihadist, he's going to turn most of Syria against him and end up just being a loser. I think he's a winner, and let's hope that we can do what we can to help him create a Syria that will be a democracy and be a reasonably good place for the Syrian Kurds too.
Thank you, Professor. So to wrap all these up, what is the aim of the America, Britain, and Israel in the Middle East right now? How do you read this?
I've always told my classes to understand what the U.S. does in the Middle East, you need two words. The first word is oil, the second word is Israel. After that, we don't care as much. And frankly, Syria is not that important to the United States. As I told you, Trump has already said, uh, I don't want to have anything to do with this. Syria is sand and death, and let it play out as it will. And this may really be for the United States self interest the best policy. I know for the Kurds, it would be very useful if the Americans could keep roughly 900 American troops in the far northeastern part of Syria, and there are some American troops on the southern border of Rojava with Jordan, and the American troops are there to support the SDF in its mission to keep ISIS from reforming. So that's really a very selfish attitude on the part of the U.S. The U.S. doesn't really care that much about the future of the Syrian Kurds. The U.S. is using the Syrian Kurds against ISIS and to prevent Iran and from gaining more of a foothold in Syria. And that's the fact of the matter.
Thank you, Professor. Lastly, shortly, we need to talk about this as well because the Kurdish leader, Mr. Abdullah Öcalan, is under isolation, and the isolation still continues. Many people are saying that the isolation is against human rights, and also many people are supporting the Öcalan's democratic confederalism idea. When we look at to Syria in its democratization process, it looks like Öcalan's ideas, as well as in Iraq as well. And then, do you think Öcalan's ideas are important? And the isolation also, as I said, continues. What is your call to end this isolation? Because millions of Kurds are still waiting to hear from Öcalan.
Well, first of all, I would wonder if really millions of Kurds, as you know, the PKK is Öcalan's, but I read all the time how the PKK and its allies are very much against the Iraqi Kurds and even blame the Iraqi Kurds for Turkish incursions against Syria and into northern Iraq. So, first of all, I would say the Kurds are not as united as you seem to say. And there are many Kurds who probably don't even like Öcalan. Now, I myself do like Öcalan. As you know, I met with him in March 1998, about a year before he was captured by Turkey, and I found him to be an intelligent person who had a great understanding for what is going on in the Middle East. And I think that if Turkey were smart about this, it would renew its negotiations with the PKK and Öcalan that were going on 10, 15 years ago, but came to a dead end and fighting renewed again. That Öcalan is certainly the key to peace in Turkey. And as Erdogan himself has recognized what a disaster this has been for Turkey, 40 years of fighting the Kurds in Turkey. We don't have to do this. Öcalan has said again and again that he is willing to have a peaceful settlement with the Turkish government that guarantees the territorial integrity of Turkey if Turkey will grant the Kurds their social, political, and economic rights, which will not hurt Turkey, will actually help Turkey. And I think it is high time that the Turkish government, that Erdogan, move on from this fruitless, no-win situation of continuing to isolate Öcalan and instead to renew the attempts to bring a Kurdish peace to Turkey.
Professor of Political Science at Tennessee Tech University and Secretary General of the EU Turkey Civic Commission, Michael Gunter. Thanks for joining us and thank you for your valuable comments.
Thank you very much.